Discuss Metal podcast with Joe Calderon of Lightworker. Hosted by Dan Terry, presented by discussmetal.com.
I have the pleasure this evening of sitting down with Joe Calderon of Lightworker. How's it going tonight, man?
Good. Just trying to beat the heat.
Yeah, it's getting harder and harder, man. We're going to be midsummer before we even know it, and we're all going to be hot and wishing it was cold again.
That's always how it is, man. It just goes back and forth. Always wanting what you don't have.
Absolutely. Well, you've got some really cool stuff going on right now, especially with the Lightworker album is getting closer and closer, Fury by Failure. And, dude, I mean, I think you guys kind of knocked it out of the park with this one. And, you know, as I've said before, I would tell you if I didn't like it. I mean, I probably wouldn't do it on the podcast for everybody to hear, but like, I would definitely have said something. And, you know, I went into this record, man, not really knowing what to expect, you know, because we'd heard Empire, and more recently we've heard The Willing Martyr. And, you know, so that kind of sets us up for an experience that is similar to what we're going to get, but there's a lot of weird twists and turns that go on with this record. So I guess what I wanted to get into was your guys' writing process for this album, being a debut and sounding notably different than your EP that you had put out before. What was your goal with this one?
I would say like the goal was overall just heavier, man. Like, you know, with The Willing Martyr being, you know, the second single, we're just going to bring a riff circus, you know, like somebody order a riff circus. Doesn't matter. You're getting one anyway, you know? And Empire, I think, is another good example of just this new found heaviness that I definitely wanted to explore a bit more. And beyond that, we had a lineup change. So what ended up happening was our old guitarist, Nick, who's still a really good friend of ours and, you know, is still, like in some ways still affiliated with the band. But he stepped down, and then Grayson took over, and his style is, you know, that's the cool thing about, I think, heavy music, where it's just like, it's such a wide, you know, like palette of different sounds in terms just within heavy music, you know? And, so what ends up happening is, you know, Grayson is a little bit more influenced by groove and by, I would almost say kind of just, he just is a big fan of impact. And then, whereas for me, I want to, you know, be completely demolished by double kick drums. And, you know, I definitely have leaned towards the side of like European kind of styled metal. And he's definitely, and not to say that, you know, I mean, I like a lot of newer bands too, but, he's definitely the dude that like is really into more of the newer, you know, subgenres like gent and all that stuff. So you take, those aspects for the heavy side of our band and you mix them together, and then you get songs like Empire, and then you get songs like The Willing Martyr, and which are just two different sides of the heavy coin, so to speak. And then Melody, he's really into, you know, I would say more of the poppier singer-songwriter stuff, whereas I'm definitely more of like punk tinged rock stuff. Trying to think here, more like the Gaslight Anthem or Hot Water music, you know, and he's more, you know, I would say maybe Pierce the Veil or Hands Like Houses and stuff like that. And then at the same time, I'm also really, really into post rock. And so we decided to just, you know, maybe throw some of that ambience in there. And it's all stuff that I think we're looking forward to, you know, just diving further into in the future. We just wrapped this one up and we're already like stoked for the next one. Not to say that, you know, we're not stoked for Fury by Failure, but it's I don't know, like we've been put in a position where we're really excited about just the opportunities that we're getting. And I think we're just kind of like, okay, well, we're going to turn the riff faucet on soon. So,
right. Well, and to sign with Solid State, which if I'm correct, is basically probably a childhood dream of yours, to be on that label and be with those other artists. So, and I apologize if this was covered in your As the Story Grows episode, but how did that come about with you guys getting in touch with Solid State and then putting out your record?
Yeah, basically that all began with Daniel Gailey, who's in Phineas and Fit for a King. He sparked off the conversation with our A&R rep, and then some other dudes and some of the other bands on the label just kind of, I guess, put in a good word. And then our manager, Chris, who plays in a band called 100 Sons and another band called Teeth, he we all just, had conversations, and, it actually, in hindsight, like, happened pretty quickly. And, we couldn't be happier. It's, we're really stoked. They're stoked. It's like Oprah, you're stoked. We're stoked. Everybody's stoked. Everybody wins something, So.
Sure. You get a car. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So that's kind of where we're at. And, I think they understand what we're trying to do. And, again, just very, very pumped.
Well, and something that you and I have talked about before, not on a podcast, but, with being signed to Solid State Record and then being, you guys not being a Christian band, what was that like? Or was there ever any expectation for you guys to fill that role? Or was it just kind of something where, I know Solid State's not the label that it used to be, which is probably the right answer. But what was that feeling like? Was there any real pressure there, or is it just kind of like chill?
It's chill for us. I mean, we're not a Christian band. I personally am a Christian. The other guys aren't. There's a mutual respect there. And, it's as simple as that. It's like we're not we're not trying to preach or anything like that. I write about a variety of different subjects, and overall honesty is just the objective, and, a quiet sense of hope, just because the world's an ugly place. And, I know for me, with the Solid State bands and whatnot, they were always a source of encouragement. And we hope to be that in a sense, but all together while still being very real about what goes on in this world. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Gotcha. Well, and despite the record having kind of a hopeful vibe to it, there's also one thing I've noticed. I was lucky enough to get to read through the lyrics a little bit today, and there's a lot of pain in there, man. A lot of heavier stuff. I mean, it's very metaphorical in a lot of sense, but I definitely get the vibe that there's a lot of pain there and a lot of passion. And I was just wondering if there was any lyrics that you wanted to highlight, or maybe whenever the record comes out, that you would want people to pay attention to.
Yeah, I would definitely say the final song on the record, it's probably the most meaningful thing that I've ever written. It's something that I don't talk about often, unless you are like a really close, relative or friend. But, just to put it out there, it's about finding out that my mom has cancer, and kind of like dealing with the uncertainty and having that just throw me for a loop, not, questioning everything, questioning the purpose of everything. And I was overwhelmed, and I didn't have answers. And, and that's what's interesting is I think it was a happy accident, but I think the lyrics and the overall are very dark. but the last stanza of the record, or the last thing that is, sung, is still just that glimmer of hope. And I guess that's just the way I am, as dark as things get. And, I just look to hope. I look to my loved ones and, friendships, and to pull me through. And, I guess another song that kind of comes to mind is, The Willing Martyr, which is
a banger.
Sure. Yeah.
It's probably my
thank you.
favorite. It's probably my favorite track on the album. Just because
nice.
I don't eat salad in real life, but I do enjoy some riff salad from time to time.
There you go.
So it definitely beats me down in a good way.
Yeah. No, and see, and that's like, because I am a hopeful person. And here's the thing: I'm hopeful. I'm a pretty positive guy, but I still get pissed off. And there's, a lot going on in this world that warrants being pissed off. Whether that's healthy to be on that level at all times is another question. But, that song was the very first song I think I wrote lyrically, where I actually told the dudes, I was like, just don't let me write anything positive. Like, I want this to be pissed, and there was times where, I started writing and they're like, you're starting to kind of lean into that hopeful aspect of things. And they just told me, they were like, dude, no, remember what you said. You told us to keep you accountable, keep it pissed, And so, and I really, that's another aspect of the band that I look forward to exploring in the future, because I just like getting into those mindsets and just kind of, in a sense, becoming the song. And I feel like that was really, for me personally, a good taste of that. So yeah, I really tried to envelop each song and tried to figure out, what is this song trying to convey? And sometimes I'm writing lyrics and I don't even know what they're even about until I'm, I would say, 90% of the way done. Yeah, it's interesting. Every song's different, but I really try to exist within those riffs and melodies and drum beats and whatnot. So
do you write lyrics first, or is it one of those like everybody writes the riffs and the song arrangement and then you add lyrics to it, or is it kind of just dependent on the song itself?
So that's what's interesting about us, is like I actually do write a good chunk of the actual music portion too. So what ends up happening is there's no real like one set way, because what I'll do is I'll write a bunch of stanzas, just words that, of something I'm feeling. Sometimes when I'm like going through something or something catches my eye or I observe something, I just jot it down real quick. And just that stanza can completely spark a new song, in terms of lyrics. Sometimes I do need to hear the actual tunes, and one of those songs was actually Remove the Earth. Which is, the title, if, you're a solid state kid like me, is a nod to the legendary Advent.
Yeah.
And
I was wondering that.
Yeah. It's a nod to Advent. And another cool thing is that song actually has, there's also a nod to C.S. Lewis in the lyrics in that song as well. But, that song was very difficult. It's funny because the song is very heavy, but there is not much screaming on it, in the grand scheme of things, like The Willing Martyr or Empire or some of the other tracks. It's largely melodic. And so trying to find ways to sing over, a bunch of chugging parts was definitely a challenge. It took me a moment. So yeah, and then there's songs like Beyond the Pale, where the chorus just I knew it before we even had the whole song like mapped out or finished. I knew what the chorus was melodically. So it's really give and take, you know.
Well, and that's interesting that you bring that up about singing over chuggy parts. You know, when you and I were talking last week about we were talking about the song 1018 and how, you know, that song is you were like, oh, so you already heard a ballad. And I was like, I wouldn't call it a ballad. Because it is still just as heavy as the preceding two tracks. However, you're singing over it through the majority of it. I love the guitar solo at the end of it. But like, it's one of those like situations where it's got to be really hard to do that, you know, like, cause as a hardcore singer, myself, or a retired hardcore singer rather, you know, I never could figure out like, how do I be melodic over stuff that's not necessarily meant to be melodic. I mean, the riffs are melodic, but like that song really stood out to me as, you know, kind of the Lightworker sound, you know, like in that, like, we're gonna play heavy riffs, and like, yeah, it's not brutal riffs, you know, like the Willing Martyr. It's heavy and melodic, and you were able to just kind of carry your melodic voice over all those riffs and stuff. I mean, was that kind of like a challenge for you in writing that song, or is that just kind of business as usual for you guys?
So for that song, I'll give you an interesting tidbit. During the recording of this album, not the writing, the recording of this album, I realized that my screaming technique was not going to be sustainable for, you know, touring, for just back-to-back shows, you know. So I actually had to relearn how to scream, like within days.
Wow.
And
yeah,
it's kind of it was an interesting process, and that's another thing I look forward to, I guess, on the next record, because I've kind of refined it, and it's gotten even better than what you hear, you know, at least in my opinion, on the actual record. But you know, so I guess singing over heavy riffs that's just something that I'm not going to say it comes naturally to me, but you know, as a fan of bands like, you know, I would say like Seosin, which they did have some like pretty sick riffs, and they were pretty much a metal band, but with, you know, like just a melodic vocalist singing over like 90% of it, if not more. And I think I kind of, you know, took that as, you know, even though my voice sounds nothing like Cove or Anthony Green, you know, I kind of took that in consideration. You know, I'm also a big, you know, like, I really like Iron Maiden, you know, 'cause metal was founded over, you know, like, there was no screaming really back then. So I think, just to me, also, I grew up listening to a ton of classical music, huge classical music nerd when I was a kid. So I think that kind of helped me kind of find the melodies within the you know, aggressive riffs, and I'm able to kind of just sing over them. But then there are songs like The Willing Martyr or Empire, or another song on the record called Words Dissolve, where you know, the dudes were like, you're just gonna have to scream over this part. It just, you know, it just makes more sense. And I did. And we're happy with the results. I remember, based on one conversation that you and I had, you said there are some parts where you sing over like these heavier moments that I was surprised that you sang over. And you know, I was thinking about that. I was like, that's interesting, like that observation, because it literally comes down to what feels right and what's best for the song. And also what's interesting, you know, because we're all fans of, you know, like popular music, but we also, as musicians, we like to be challenged. So it's the never ending, you know, journey of trying to find the perfect balance between, I guess, kind of art and also at the same time trying to make it so it's like, trying to find the right word here, but it's just, like I said, we're big suckers for melody. So like, we want that brutality, but we also want to be able to sing over it too. So it's, we're always kind of like chasing that, although we have been in light discussions, very, very light discussions as to like, possibly doing something with no singing at all in the future. So, whether that be for a song or something, who knows? But there's a lot of territory to be explored.
What has been your reaction, to the singles and how they've been received? Do you feel that they've been well received by the audience?
From what I can see, yes, and it's completely overwhelming in the best way. I still feel like I need to pinch myself. I just feel very grateful. I feel very humbled. The response has been, it's been fantastic, and I couldn't ask for more. That's what I would say. I mean, and of course, there's always going to be a couple people here and there that are just not into it. I mean, and that's fine. I'd rather they be honest. And, but I mean, from what I've seen, it seems like people are stoked. So, yeah.
Totally. I mean, and, there is a lot of credence to that. And it's something that I have to remind myself sometimes, too, that negative feedback is sometimes the best feedback that you can get. Not that you guys have had a lot, and that can be hard because we grow up in a society where everybody's like, man, whatever, like who cares if people don't like it or whatever. But like sometimes, and again, we're talking about like 2 people out of like thousands, right? So, it's funny whenever you get that negative feedback, and it's cool that you're listening to it. That's really cool. But, with this record, I have to address the elephant in the room. How has it been difficult for you not being able to kind of get out and play these songs out, especially with the record dropping when it does? And we don't really know if venues are going to be receptive to bands coming and playing anytime this year. So what has that process been like for you guys as far as dealing with it?
Yeah, it's been a bummer, but we also are being proactive about the situation. And what I mean by that is, we have things in the works to try to bring, our music to people in some sort of live capacity. And that's something that we're working diligently on. And we're hoping that next year we get to hit the road and perform these songs and, just get to hang out with people. That's our band is, we're all very laid back dudes, and we love hanging out. We love, just hanging out and just talking, nerding out on whatever, and, music or any other, things that, we might be into or other people are into. And I think that's that sense of camaraderie, because that's the thing. Heavy music is meant to be played live, right? Heavy music is, you look at, you look at Iron Maiden playing live, and you see Bruce Dickinson running all over the place and waving that, the banner and whatnot. And it's there's intensity, there's energy, and all the way down to to the recent defunct Legends Dillinger Escape Plan. It's supposed to be, spontaneous, and that's something that we miss. That's something that, and we got a taste of it because we played a show right like I think about a week or 2 before everything started shutting down, at least here in California. And being with friends and new faces and whatnot, it was just such a it was right before everything was just kind of taken away from everybody. And it was probably one of the best feelings, because I remember, me and the guys were standing outside of the venue in between set changes. We had already played our set, and we were just discussing the future and whatnot, only to, for things just to, go into complete lockdown. So.
Yeah, come into a grinding halt. Yeah.
Yeah, so... But
well, yeah,
it is what it is.
You've talked a lot about Iron Maiden, so I'd be remiss if I didn't ask. What's your favorite Iron Maiden album?
Shoot,
There's only like 20 of them to pick from, shouldn't be too difficult.
Yeah, and then there's the different vocalist situation. I'd probably have to go with the classic, it's probably either going to be Power Slave or it's going to be Number of the Beast. So it's just and it's what's funny is that I think their drummer is actually a Christian, which is kind of cool. Like Nico McBrain.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty cool. So I don't know, they're just a lot of fun, man. Just fun band. So
absolutely, man. I love Iron Maiden. Like, and it's hard because like I'm supposed to only care about like brutal stuff or whatever. But like, whatever, man. I listen to Styx. Like, I don't care. But like, yeah. And to answer your answer, Power Slave is the correct answer. 100%. Yeah, oh my goodness, Aces High is like probably the best album opener I've ever heard on a record. But to get back to Lightworker, you say that you guys are, you have this record, you have it done, and I would assume it's kind of the classic band feeling of you play your songs until you hate them, and then you record them, and then you have to play them out. And you're talking about new stuff on the horizon. So are you talking like, are you still in the same mindset as far as heavier?
That's a good question. I mean, I think you would get a different answer from, like the different primary songwriters.
Sure. Sure.
In this case, that'd be me and Grayson. So, I'm kind of like, more, in terms of heaviness, but at the same time, I mean, my favorite band of all time is Jimmy Eat World. So, I mean, it's just a mood thing for me. And, there are some, loose concepts and stuff like that. We haven't like actively begun writing. I don't think we will for quite some time. But I would say that's a loose yes, heavier in some respect.
So I want to rewind the clock a little bit, and focus this interview less on the band and more on you. You are so prolific in the, as weird as it is to say, in a lot of the Facebook groups that I frequent, being the Face Down Records, one of the most notable ones is the Face Down Records and the My Epic group. And, you've always been kind of a pillar of positivity in promoting those bands, and kind of getting the word out on that stuff. What was your inspiration, I guess, as far as wanting to kind of be a voice for some of these bands and some of these labels?
I would say the only reason why I say is because I know exactly like the answer, but I'm just trying to filter it in my brain because I feel like there's a lot to say about it. But I think it ultimately comes down to, I think music is something that should be valued, and it's something I value a lot. And I think that we live in a world where a bunch of, nonsense is always consistently being shoved in front of our eyes and down our throats. And, I feel like these bands have something legitimate to say, and it's, will give you food for thought, will give you, just a different perspective on different aspects of life. And that's why I do it. I mean, because the way I look at it is, they work so hard on writing songs and then recording them and then releasing them. And then to a model where, people can just essentially just take the songs for free, and which is fine. I want everybody to hear, songs. It's really cool that, if somebody wants a list of recommendations for me, I can just make a playlist on Apple Music or Spotify or even YouTube, and I can just send it to them,
Sure.
But sustainability is an issue. And especially during these COVID times, I think it's something that, to me, in my mind, it's time to give back. Like they write the soundtracks to our lives, to the moments that we struggle, to the moments of sheer joy, happiness. Without it, I mean, we would be, stuck with silence or just, just white noise. And so it's there's I can't even begin, like, for example, like the Jimmy Eat World discography, just completely every album has like their select moment in time for me. And what's interesting though is I can go back and listen to those records, and not only does it take me back to that time, but sometimes, and more often than not, I build new memories by putting them on repeat and just listening to them over and over again. And and which brings me to my next thing. A lot of I see a lot of people are like, oh, this band is breaking up. I wish they would do a last tour. And for me, I'm always like, I wish they would do like a last EP, because which one lasts longer? You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
In an age where, everybody has their smartphones filming everything, and at decent quality too. A lot of the time, you can watch live footage anytime. But with a farewell EP, it's like, well, that band will, only that band can sound like that band, and so I'd rather have like a parting legacy that just, it has a lot of replay value, and just new content, so to speak, and something that, kind of seals the deal with that relationship and legacy for that, band.
No, that's cool. And I think that one of the things the bands lack these days is advocates, having an advocate that believes in what they're doing and will actively, I think we used to call it a street team, but I mean, it's more than that, especially with some of the bands that we're talking about, especially like a band like My Epic, where there's just so many layers to what they do. Yeah. I feel like for the average listener, they might hear it and be like, oh, well, this sounds good to my ears, but maybe they're not getting the full effect. And I think that's what makes, these groups really effective, is that you can have those, especially that group at the My Epic. I'm actually really impressed with that group, because you guys don't just talk about the band, like it's so much more than that. You guys get really, really deep into a lot of subjects, and it's always an entertaining read. I'll admit I'm more of a lurker than a poster. Just because, like, I mean, I do this podcast, but to be honest, I don't always have a lot to say, in regards to all that. But a lot of the conversations that take place there, and also even in the Facedown group, are always kind of food for thought, for me, and so they definitely serve a purpose, totally. But I want to rewind the clock a little bit more. And
Sure.
kind of get into what got you. I don't want to ask Brian's question, which is, what got you into music, but what got you into this kind of music, especially with the heavier hardcore stuff, but also obviously we leave open doors for bands like Jimmy Eat World and Further Seems Forever, and bands like that.
Sure.
What got you into this scene, into this type of stuff, the Solid States, the Face Downs, labels like that?
Well, I'd be lying if it didn't, if it weren't for one band that wasn't on either of those labels, and that would be Finch. They were
I love Finch.
Yeah, and I feel like I talk about a band that is notoriously underrated for, I mean, I think this is the way I kind of look at it. I feel like there was a lot of bands that paved the way for Finch, and Finch was a lot of pop punk stuff mixed with, like the post-hardcore, maybe a dab of screamo here and there. They bridged so many different styles of music, and it ended up being very palatable and very good. And that just made people interested in heavy music, because you had their poppier songs, and then you had some of the more chaotic songs that people would skip over, and then but sometimes they'll just let the CD play,
Sure.
Back when people listen to CDs. And
I still listen to CDs. Anytime a vinyl price goes over $30, I'm like, the CD's okay.
Right. And so I mean, and then it'll be like a song from What It Is to Burn, like it'll be Stay With Me followed by Project Mayhem, which is, like a love pop song, basically pop punk song.
Oh my God, dude. Project Mayhem with Daryl Palumbo from Glassjaw. Oh.
Exactly. And then it's just chaos. And, and I think that started to kind of, I before, when I first got it, I was younger, so I didn't really understand it, but I was definitely drawn to it. And I think and then there was, the second half of the record definitely had some heavier tracks, and I think that kind of made me, that primed me for the other stuff. And what, like the bands that made me take like the complete plunge, I would separate it into two different categories. I'm not really, oh man, I'm going to get flack for this. I'm not huge into hardcore.
Oh no. I'm going to end this. I got to go. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, but I do have a select handful of bands that I absolutely do love. And then usually the hardcore bands I tend to have a little bit more of a, I guess a progressive side or just melodic thing going on, which is, so Beloved was huge.
Yeah.
And then I saw this tour where it was, so check this out. This is back when, the scene was so tight knit that lineups were, varied, and it wasn't so much about, the breakdowns or whatever. It was just like, hey, is this good? Cool. Let's go on tour. And I saw the lineup was Armor for Sleep opening, followed by Beloved. Oh, no, it was Beloved, then Armor for Sleep, followed
that
by
sounds right.
Zayo. Yeah, followed by Zayo. Then with, headlining was Further Seems Forever with Jason Gleason.
Oh, man. That's awesome. You're showing your age, by the way.
Don't worry about it. But
it's all good. It's all good, man. Yeah. I got gray hair too. It's fine.
It's actually, it's funny. I don't have a single gray hair. I'm probably totally jinxing myself now, but some of the younger dudes in the band do. So,
well, now tomorrow morning you're gonna wake up, and you're gonna find a single gray hair, and you're gonna rip it out, and you're gonna be like, "See, I don't have a problem." And then 2 days later, 2 more are gonna pop up. That's how it happened to me, man.
Yeah, well, that's why I got to stay stress free by playing all this angsty heavy music.
Yeah, that's a solid plan.
Yeah. So, but so I mean, it was just kind of that tour, and I was already a fan of Zayo, so that was more the heavier stuff. But Beloved got me more into the hardcore stuff, which then led to, in terms of hardcore stuff, led me to Strong Arm and some of the other stuff like that. But I was definitely leaning more towards All Hail the Mighty Riff.
Sure.
So I got into, kind of more of the metalcore stuff. So early Haste the Day was, I would say, the first 2 solid state record releases that I bought officially were Zayo's Legendary and then Haste the Day's Burning Bridges, I think within weeks of each other. And I just didn't look back after that. So
this is kind of off topic, but does it bother you? It bothers me that vocal style is kind of becoming a lost art. Like the Jimmy Ryan, Dan Wyant, growly snarl vocal. I feel like nobody does that anymore, and it bums me out, man.
Oh, you're talking about almost like the black metalish kind of vocal.
Yeah, like that serpentine type of vocal. It totally bums me out that I only hear it from Jimmy Ryan and Dan Wyant. I don't hear it from anybody else anymore.
Huh. I mean, I guess you could say, well, I mean, this band is always
Josh Ashworth, yeah.
Yeah, and then but the other person that I was going to say was Peter. I don't know how to say his last name. Espel?
Peter from Extol. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Peter from Extol. He kind of has that thing going. But yeah, no, I mean, I agree, because it was. I think you kind of find it more in the. I guess this is kind of showing how obscure my music taste. Well, not obscure, but different my music taste, especially from the rest of the guys in my band. But you can find some of that kind of stuff in some of the black metal realm, I guess.
Sure. Yeah.
But in terms of metalcore or whatever. It's yeah, I would say it's definitely not as prevalent. And I think that vocal style, it's funny because when I first started screaming a long time ago, it was kind of a little bit like that, but it just was not, I don't know. It was weird. Like when I was younger, yeah, I could do that, hours on end. And then as I got older, I started getting into like more like blows and stuff like that. And that's all I practiced. And I pretty much lost all my high screaming abilities. And then with my new screaming technique, I was able to bring back my highs, but they don't sound like they did back then. So
no, but it works out because it sounds unique. I mean, I think when we all started screaming, at the very least, the two guys talking on this call right now, we all wanted to be Zayo, when we started, because when we heard it, it was the coolest thing we'd ever heard in our lives, like it was.
Well, that was the thing, like with Zayo, I mean, that was what was pretty gnarly about them was I remember being a kid and just being intimidated. And that's kind of what was, but to me, like, I don't know, maybe because I'm just a messed up person, but that's kind of what drew me in because I was like, ooh, this is kind of creepy,
Oh yeah, dude. Same. Yeah.
And, it was just, and especially, growing up the way I did, like, it was just like, that was not, that was not something that my mom was super stoked about when I got into metal,
Yeah. I mean, it's an instant parent turn off. Yeah. Like parents are like, oh my God, I need to send my kid to reform school. Like this is not okay by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah.
Yeah. And now your son's in a metal band. So,
I mean, that's what you get.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I think, I'm trying to think. I don't know, man. I think, well, the person that I tried to learn screaming to was actually Chino Moreno from Deftones. I remember putting on White Pony and just trying to scream, to Elite. And
oh yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah.
yeah. So that and I think. And then, yeah, Dan was definitely, I don't know, Dan was on another level, though. Like, I'm trying to think back to then, and I don't think I ever tried to even do that, per se. Just because I was like, that dude is just gnarly, And he still is, He still is. Same with Jimmy. And I think, I mean, whenever we get that Trenches record, it'll be good to hear his unique screech again. So
yeah, Joe and I just did a review for the first Trenches record on our Patreon for discography discussion, and I remember him being like, "Wow, it's like DeRosis and Zayo had a baby," and it's so just, yeah, like you said, it's gnarly. It's what got me into more extreme music, and like it just, I don't know, that vocal style can't be denied. But moving on to what you said earlier about like when you recorded the album, you had to learn how to scream again. What does that take? I know when I was younger and I was trying to scream, this is really dumb, but I used to like sleep with bricks on my chest, like to try to get, that sort of like chest voice, I guess. And then add a little bit of distortion with the throat. But did you, like, were you happy with, obviously you must have been happy with how it turned out, because you've got kind of that old school, almost like face down scream, but you're mixing it with clean vocals. Like what was that like for you as far as being able to balance the two? Because I was never able to. I had to choose whether I was going to be a singer or a screamer, and I ultimately chose screamer.
I think, well, the thing was that I grew up singing in choirs and stuff like that. So that my background is in melody, and so I think for me, I was just determined to learn how to scream just because I don't know why. I'm trying to think back to when, I was in high school and trying to mimic stuff. And I think I just wanted to be able to do it just because I thought it was so cool, and in terms of like relearning how to do it, I mean, I think I've always become the singer of a band. I've never like fronted a band really before, but like I was always like the melodic singer and slash backing screamer, and I usually played bass. And so I was always, that dude who would, just kind of add to, the variety for the band, or I would, in my last band, we had we almost had like a receiving end of sirens thing going on where we had 3 vocalists and two of us could scream. So, that's what we did, and I think it just something that I've been doing it for so long now that it's just kind of second nature. And I just want to, and especially now that I've learned this new technique, I just want to continue to refine it and hopefully just do gnarlier stuff, just like, and we'll see where it goes, and just continue working towards my craft, whether it be screaming or singing.
No, that's cool. And one of the things that really stood out to me with this record was it just sounds fresh to me, which is weird because, I routinely, on my other show, Discography Discussion, I tend to more or less shit on bands for being too clean. And I remember hearing Empire and being like, well, it's super clean. Like they, somebody spent some money, either you or Brandon Ebel spent some money to make this record sound as good as it does. Mm-hmm. But it seems like you guys had a really good sense of balancing the heavy parts with the melodic, but it not having to compromise anything. So like the melodic sections are very much that, if you took all the screaming out of a song and put it on radio rock, people would dig it. But you guys have the screaming, you have the breakdowns, but you're able to keep that like super brutal in kind of the solid state tradition, of bands that are going to be a little heavy enough to where your parents aren't going to totally dig it. Mm-hmm. Was that kind of a challenge to pull that out? Because I know a lot of bands will say like, oh yeah, our record, it's super well produced, but at the same time, that clean production kind of takes away from the heaviness, and you guys were able to kind of bridge that gap where, not only do you have heavy parts and melodic parts, but they blend together, but not so much that either side takes precedence.
Yeah, I think that's just many years of trying to write and refine. And thank you first off, before I continue, thank you so much. That means a lot. I think the way Grayson and I write, we're very calculated dudes, especially Grayson. And we kind of keep each other in check, where we're just kind of like, hey, this part, this song is starting to, there are times where we're just like, we just want to write a complete scorcher, and then that's the goal. That's what we're going to do. And then there's times where we don't know where a song's going to end up. And we just really do no matter what, we always do what feels right. But sometimes when we don't know where the song is headed, we kind of let the song kind of guide it, and I'd say, I don't know, man. I think overall we just like what we like, we love, I love the 1975 and I love singing like a good hook, but at the same time, I want to, I want double bass pummeling my skull, when I have my headphones on.
Sure.
And, like for example, I would say that my favorite current metalcore band right now is a band from Glasgow, Scotland, called Bleed From Within.
Okay,
and
yeah.
I feel like they're doing metalcore the way that it should be done, in my opinion. They're just writing awesome riffs. They have groove, but at the same time, they do have the pummeling, double bass parts, and they use melody, but very tastefully. And it's just, I don't know. It's just something that, So it's like, how do we get Jimmy Eat World into a metal song? You know what I mean? How do we,
Yeah.
like, how do we get, Caspian into a metal song? And I think, especially once we move forward too, I think that's something that we're going to try to explore more of, where, how do we fit this without it sounding like unnatural or cheesy, and here's the thing, we're not even trying to reinvent the wheel or whatever. We just want to write music that we think is good, and that we have fun playing. Because here's the thing, at the end of the day, like, we're going to be the ones playing it at night, and we want to have fun. And a lot of times what ends up happening is, if we're having fun, then the crowd is having fun, and then we feed off of each other, and then everybody's one big happy COVID-free family.
Sure.
So I think, it's just there, everything serves a purpose. And there's sometimes where, we'll throw in a weird discorded thing just because it sounds cool, and then, the next moment will be, like a catchy melodic part. So it's really just, I don't know. I think it just, in certain ways it's second nature, and in certain ways it's Grayson and I always continually pushing each other to, go further and push the boundaries. And yeah, that was like a really long-winded answer, but
No, it's all good, man. No worries. Our listeners are used to like a super long podcast, so it's all good. People actually bitch at me whenever it's not long enough. So
there you go.
so it's perfect.
So I guess in short, like, there's no real like rhyme or reason. We just, we will have a goal, and however we execute it is, is to be determined. We don't know. And here's the thing. Also, it's also a lot of compromise too, because there's aspects of heavy music that Grayson doesn't like, and vice versa, and same with the more melodic parts. So there are some parts where I'm just kind of like, all right, that's not my favorite part, but I like it, and same for Grayson. And we just, I think that's also kind of what, helps Lightworker have its sound, because it's two dudes who like generally the same style of music, but interpret it very differently.
Well, and I want to take this time too to kind of give you the floor as far as I'm gonna take a page from the Labeled podcast book and ask you what your favorite Solid State Records release is out of their catalog, as well as some albums that you think that don't have to be Solid State, that you think people should check out right now.
Okay. So my all-time favorite for Solid State first.
Yeah. Favorite from Solid State gotcha. First, or Tooth and Nail. It's fine.
Okay. Man, that is so hard, but at the same time, it's kind of not.
It's like picking a favorite kid. Yeah.
Yeah, because the way I connect with music is definitely on a very cognitive and emotional level. So if I can't be one of those guys who just listens to something and it's just like, I guess this is objectively sick, like, to me, I'm just, I'm the kind of person who's like, well, what does it mean? Looking into the deeper meanings and trying to find the subtleties and whatnot. But, so that's kind of what makes it hard, but also easy at the same time. And I would have to say Son, I Loved You at Your Darkest by A City's Burn, which I think is a pretty common answer for dudes that grew up in the scene when I did, or not just dudes, but everybody, and because the thing was that among the sea of breakdowns and, sweeping guitars, Cody the band brought something different. I mean, there were kind of breakdowns, but not. There were, definitely awesome guitar, parts, but they weren't necessarily sweeping. He would do like this kind of like, I don't know. It was very signature to him, where it was very like these wavy kind of guitar, lead guitar parts, and lyrically just completely unflinching and honest. And that's something I can identify with. And the fact that I, in my own ways, went through a lot of the same things that those lyrics talk about. And those are also things that I discuss in Lightworker lyrics. I think it was very cathartic and also therapeutic for me. And then beyond that, I would say like records you got to listen to right now. I would say On Circles by Caspian. Let's see here. Oh, Season or a C by Old Solar. The new Bleed From Within record called Fracture. The new 1975 record I really like, and our label mates, Tooth and Nail / Solid State, but I guess they're still technically our label mates. The new Tiger Wine record.
Oh my goodness, yeah,
it's really really good. And then I would say Self-Titled by Extol. It's like it just. I mean, everybody needs to listen to Extol. I don't care. Like, if you're a fan of heavy music, listen to Extol. There's something to be taken away from it. Whether you're a hardcore kid, a metal kid, metalcore kid, a gent kid, there is something like if you, especially if you lean towards more of the metal realm. I mean, some like at least one dude in a band that you like that's really popular right now loves Extol, and they likely ripped something off from them. So
totally, yeah.
So
I've got that on vinyl somewhere behind me.
Yep, there you go. And I want to also give a big shout out to my buddies CJ and Wilson from 1,000 Arms. They run a really small label that puts out just great post-rock, post-metal stuff. And, that's what Old Solar is on, and other awesome bands like Pillars, and not like the Christian, like new metal band, but like Pillars. They're like a really
they were only new metal for one album.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. And then, but Pillars, like plural, like they have like some really cool introspective stuff, but at the same time writing some really, I think they're like one of the first like post rock bands that I've heard use like double kick, but like in a unique way. Cause usually, with post rock, it's like crescendos and all that stuff. But this was like on the second track of their new album called, I think it's Cavum. I just didn't expect it, because usually, cause post rock and post metal can be heavy, but it's not like a burst. Like it was not like a straight up, like crazy burst, but I mean, just for the genre, it's just kind of like, it was a little, it was surprising, and it was really cool. And when they do heavy stuff, they're bringing it. And but yeah, those are the records. Yeah, that's a lot of records. But those are the ones that I'm like completely in love with right now, and or have always been in love with. Oh, one last one, I promise. Alive or Just Breathing by Killswitch Engage. So,
well, yeah, I mean that's a staple for all of us. I mean, without that record, we wouldn't even have records like Fury by Failure.
Right, exactly.
I mean, come on.
No, dude. I mean, that record. I mean, you even talk to different A&R reps from back then, or just even music historians that are in with the heavy music crowd and whatnot, and everybody agrees that just from a critic standpoint, from a historical standpoint, that music changed the face. I mean, that album, Alive or Just Breathing, changed the face of metal. It just did.
Oh yeah, totally.
And you don't gotta like it, but you gotta respect it.
Yeah, 100%. And speaking of records, you have been a very outspoken vinyl supporter for as long as I've known you. Mm-hmm. And what is it about vinyl, I guess, that really gets your engine going?
Oof, a record that I really stoked on.
No, I mean just vinyl in general. You know, like what is it about vinyl that makes it more appealing to you as a listener than, you know, like a CD or yeah, I'll throw it out there, even a cassette.
Okay. Well, I think just the overall just listening experience, like just having to, we live in such a, I keep saying this, but it's true. We live in such a busy world, and just having to, there's something devastatingly beautiful about the fact that, you know, it, you have a needle literally like dragging chunks of wax off of this disc in order to make this beautiful sound, but each time you play it, it just wears down just a little bit. And so with that knowledge, it's like, well, you better listen up. You better pay attention, because it's never going to sound as good as it did the last time. And especially depending on the kind of record player you have. But and that was totally nerdy of me to say, but oh well. I would say just that overall experience. I love having to read the lyrics, and even so much that like for Lightworker, the Fury by Failure vinyl actually comes with extended liner notes for the music fan, for people that want to actually sink into the music. And each song has like a brief summary written by me and Grayson that kind of gives you a little bit of an outline as to what the song is about, or maybe some trivia or a fun fact, or sometimes it goes into what the lyrics are about, and just something to of substance. Because the way I look at it is, if you're willing to invest into vinyl, then you're more than likely going to want to know like what the song's about, and you're probably going to read the lyrics. And for us as music fans, if somebody wants to come up to us and ask us questions and spark a conversation based off of what we wrote in the extended liner notes, great. That's part of the reason why we did it, and that way we can, nerd out on other stuff beyond that, not just Lightworker stuff, but it's just like, hey, on this part, you wrote that this was influenced by, C.S. Lewis. Like, what are your thoughts on him? You know what I mean? And then automatically you make a new friend, and the music community is, that's what it's about, and that's what's unfortunate about this whole COVID thing, is that, we can't get together anymore. But it all ties back into having that vinyl or CD or cassette in your hand, where you take the time to just kind of put it in. And maybe not so much with CDs, because it's a laser, but with tapes or with vinyl, you're wearing it down. And I think there's no more profound and beautiful way of saying like, this deserves to be listened to than again, just the devastatingly beautiful way that it just decays after each listen. So
Sure, absolutely. And I mean, that's my attraction to it. But yeah, man, I really appreciate you taking the time out tonight to talk, and I hope some people got some insight for the record. It's going to be dropping when this posts. It'll be dropping in just a couple of days, so they're going to get to hear everything that we're talking about, everything that we're excited about, and yeah, man.
For you though, before we go, I got a question for you.
Oh man, you're going to flip the script on me? Okay,
I have to.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's flip it.
Well, so, what were your top 3 favorite songs off of Fury by Failure? I know you said The Willing Martyr was likely one of them.
So my favorite songs, if I had to pick 3, The Willing Martyr, 1018, and Dissonance, the final track. I just thought that I really thought that Dissonance really tied the record together in a nice little bow, and it's definitely the track that I've listened to the most since I've had the opportunity to listen to it. And I really dug the lyrics on the record. Or I'm sorry, on that song specifically. And my favorite lyrics, if I'm allowed to repeat them, as you mentioned in the episode, the final stanza, which is, even as time wears thin and my vision dims, I'll seek the evidence. I can't hear your words, but I still believe them. I think that really ends the record off with kind of this feeling of hope of, kind of like giving a benefit of the doubt and opening yourself up to a hopeful kind of mindset. Because, and if I can use this as a comparison, one of my favorite records of all is Depravity by A Plea for Purging. And at the end of that record, he's talking about his spiritual relationship and all that. And he says at the end, like, I don't know if I can ever find my way back. Which is a very negative, very dark ending of the record for a very dark record, But I felt like with this one in particular, I don't know, ending it off with those lyrics of, just I can't hear your words, but I still believe them. Leaves kind of this kind of open note of hope, and I don't know, man. It just really ties it all together, and definitely made me feel hopeful. I'm not like the most positive guy in the world, so it definitely had that effect on me, and is really what inspired me to kind of dig deeper into some of the other lyrics. So I'm really a fan in that regard. I like in the lyrics the balance of pain as well as hope, and yeah, I mean, I just it affected me, and there's not a whole lot of stuff that I listen to these days. I listen to a lot of metal, listen to a lot of hardcore, and it's not always like the most hopeful stuff in the world.
Right.
But I feel like the super dark, super angry stuff kind of feeds into kind of that mindset. And so it's kind of nice to hear something a little bit more refreshing. I describe the record as fresh, and that's lyrically as well as musically, and kind of gives me a little bit of a glimmer of hope. And so, in that regard, I think that's probably it's my second favorite song because it's not as heavy as the Willing Martyr, and I always got to go where the heavy's at. So that's just where we're at. But yeah, those are my three favorite songs.
Awesome,
like for sure.
Well, and here, this is the last interesting tidbit that I'll give you about that song for Dissonance, where, nothing in that song repeats except for the chorus. And, so there's two different like heavier verses. And the first one is representative of kind of like my style in terms of what I like when it comes to heavy music. And then the next verse is more representative of the style of heavy music that Grayson likes. And, that's kind of also another fun fact and how it kind of, for us, like as the dudes that kind of, wrote the song, kind of ties it all together also. And that song's very special to us for a variety of reasons. But I thought that would be kind of like a cool thing to kind of share with you. So, yeah.
No, that's awesome, and I appreciate it. But yeah, Joe, I really appreciate you taking the time out tonight, man. This was awesome, and like I said, with this post, the record will not be far off. Hopefully, just a couple of days. So, I hope everybody listens to it and checks it out. Joe is not giving me any money to say that. I listened to the record. I dug it, and I think you guys are going to find a lot to like out of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.